Today we're going to focus specifically on level three, which are businesses doing between a million and 2.5 million. Again, when we talk about operating profits, we talk about gross margins at least 40% and net margins at least 20%. So if the business is doing around 2.5 million of sales, that means that the cash flow should be around $500,000 to $600,000. Again, as the cash flow grows, you'll see the multiples continue to expand. And so businesses with cash flow in the $500,000 to $600,000 range, it's very possible, depending upon what the business is and what the revenue segments are, the business could trade for multiples in the 4 to 5 times range. And so, again, we're seeing the significance and the importance of multiple expansions. A level one business is going to trade in the 2 to 3 times range. A level two business is going to trade in the 3 to 4 times range. A level three business is going to trade in the 4 to 5 times range. Again, remember, buyers are buying cash flow. They're buying predictable, sustainable, repeatable, growing cash flow. And they measure their risk of that cash flow by the multiple that they're willing to pay. The higher the risk, smaller businesses, more owner-dependent businesses, the lower the multiple that they're willing to pay. Larger businesses beginning to be less risk, less owner dependency, the higher the multiple that they're willing to pay. So the importance of multiple expansion is beginning to play a more important role in the valuation. If the business is doing around $500,000 to $600,000 of cash flow, and the multiple that it's going to trade off of is in the 4 to 5 times range, that means the business is worth somewhere between $2 million, $4 and $3 million. Let's go back to the org structure for a moment and look at how the numbers of employees change, the organizational structure changes, the owner's responsibilities change. A level one business is very simple. It's an owner and maybe 1 or 2 employees. A level two business is beginning to become a bit more complicated. It's going to have the owner plus maybe 3 to 4 employees, and so you're going to have an org structure that looks something like this. Now we're talking about a level three business that's got upwards to 8 to 10 employees, and you're beginning to see real functions and real departments beginning to be formed, working from left to right. You've got a marketing department. A lot of the marketing might be outsourced. There might be an outside agency, but there's beginning to be a clear marketing function that still the owner's responsible for, but that's becoming a separate entity in itself. It's usually at a level three stage that the owner begins to form a sales department for the first time, and he begins to bring on a sales rep that can work with him, and the owner's going to teach him the various aspects of sales calls and pricing and estimating. And so you're beginning to see a sales department be formed. You've got a couple of CSRs at this point. The number of calls that are coming in, the amount of work that's needing to be done from a scheduling standpoint, from a workflow standpoint. A couple of CSRs are needed to be in-house to support the work that's needing to be done from call assignments. You might have a part-time bookkeeper. It's oftentimes at this point that the amount of work that needs to be done in the finance department is beyond what a CSR is able to handle, or maybe what a spouse or some sort of family member might be able to do. And so for the first time, you're looking to bring either a full-time or a part-time or a fractional bookkeeper in to handle the payables and the receivables and the payroll. And so you're beginning to see a finance department uh, be formed. The amount of work that's needing to be done in the field is it's continuing to grow. And so oftentimes at this level, you'll see the field staff. They'll begin to be a field manager that's responsible for the field responsibilities. There might be senior field reps and junior field reps, apprentice reps, and so there's beginning to be some real structure and some scale in terms of what's needed to be required in the business to support the service calls, the install calls, the work that's needing to be done in the field. And so, there could be 4 or 5, maybe 6 even field staff that's needed to require the work. And so the total employee base here, 8 to 10. And so, the owner is still managing at least half of the people, perhaps the field staff. There's a field manager that's managing those, but you can see the owners being spread very broadly in terms of the various responsibilities that they're having to manage at this point. Um, Around 8 employees, 8 to 10 employees, financial targets. We're looking at the business growing at least 20% a year. We're looking at the gross profit margins at least 40%. We're looking at the net profit margins at least 20%. The owner is beginning to really exercise his own value system and building culture around performance and accountability. The owner's involved in marketing, the owner's involved in sales, the owner's involved in operations, the owner's involved in managing people. Key performance indicators are beginning to come for the first time, where the owner's really beginning to measure the business in terms of KPIs, both from an operational standpoint and from a financial standpoint. As I mentioned earlier, a sales department's beginning to be formed. The owner's thinking about how to continue to grow the business. Do we grow the business through expanding the geography that we cover? Do we grow the business by expanding the service lines that we're offering to our clients, or do we grow the business just by getting greater market share? The owner's income, the business is kicking off 500,000 to 600,000 of cash flow a year now, and so the owner's beginning to take real money out of the business. It could be that the income that the owner's taken out of the business at this point could be 2, 3, 4, maybe even $500,000. And so the owner has a very nice income that's coming out of the business. Even though the business is still very owner dependent with 8 or 10 employees, the foundation is there for the business, at least various departments of the business, to be able to run independent of the owner's direct oversight. It's not there yet. The owner is still very much involved. The owner has his finger or her finger on the pulse of so many different areas of that are taking place within the business, but at least the foundation now is being formed. When you look at the owner's sort of skill set and competency within that skill set, you'll see not only are the areas expanding, but because the owner's been performing in some of these areas for a number of years now, their competency and their confidence, and their efficiency is beginning to grow also. They're involved in finance, they're involved in leadership of the company, they're overseeing the marketing, they're overseeing the operations, they're overseeing the people and the culture, the hiring and the recruiting. They're overseeing sales, they're overseeing the growth strategy, and they're beginning to implement some CRMs and some technology platforms for the first time. Some of these areas, marketing, operation, the people management and sales, they've been doing for a number of years. And so their confidence level and their skill set within these areas is beginning to grow. They're going from a level 1 to a level 2 now in terms of their competency. Some of these areas they're really doing for the first time. They're beginning to really understand how to read a P&L and understand how to read a balance sheet and understand how to read a cash flow statement. And so they're even though they've been responsible for finance since the beginning, they're beginning to get better at it in terms of their skill set. They're beginning to understand more what it takes to build culture and what it means to be a leader. They've got a ways to go in terms of becoming a really great leader, but they're beginning to understand what that means. They're beginning to understand the various technology platforms and how they can fit in order for them to drive efficiency into the business, and beginning to experiment with different technology platforms. And so they're beginning to develop their skill set in that area, even though it's beginning. And so there's the beginning of a real, not only a real business, but the owner is beginning to develop as a business leader. And so you're beginning to see the areas of competency that they have beginning to expand, and what their skill set in those areas expanding. So this is what a level 3 business looks like. It's beginning to be a real business. The owner's making real money. The business is still very dependent upon him, and so he has not moved beyond that point yet. But the foundations are there, and as the owner begins to think about the business, begins to think about the value of the business, begins to think about how that valuation is achieved, he or she is beginning to get a real handle on, this is where I am, and beginning to project out where I need to be and how long it's going to take me to get there, to be able to reach what the ultimate valuation is.